Hello fourth grade. So today we are going to start our Tempera Paint skill builders. We have 2 pages. I'm going to set the second page aside for now and work on the first page. So in your mixing tray you are going to need the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. You're going to need a warm color and a cool color, and you're going to need white and black. So I have my warm color and my cool color, black and white. You want a paintbrush, green handled or red handled is fine, a sponge to dry off your paintbrush, and a water basin. So we're going to paint these on separate papers, not directly into our sketchbook. That way we can put them on the drying rack to dry, and then we'll just glue them into our sketchbook later. So this first box, secondary colors are created by mixing 2 primary colors together. They are purple, orange, and green. That's what the secondary colors are, purple, orange, and green. So we're going to mix red and blue together to get this middle color. So it's like a Venn diagram where you overlap red and blue. So I'm just going to start with red and paint in my red sections. I have more than one, so I'll just do both of them at the same time. So red, and then I have another red here. Looks like I might need a smaller paintbrush. If you feel like you can't stay within the shape very easily, you can get yourself a smaller paintbrush. Okay, I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off. Dry my paintbrush off. And I'll paint the blue spaces next. You could probably do these in any order you want. If you want to do yellow first, red first, whatever order is fine. Rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off. Yellow. Don't want to paint the tempera paint on super thick, because as it dries it'll actually break and crack and even fall off your paper. Okay. So before I rinse and dry my paintbrush off, I need yellow to mix this color and this color. So I'm going to take some yellow with my paintbrush and move it to a blank area. And I'm going to take a little bit more yellow and move it to another blank area. An empty space. Rinse my paintbrush off. Dry my paintbrush off. And then I'm going to mix red and yellow together. So I'm going to get a little bit of red. And in one of those 2 spaces that I put yellow, I'm going to mix that red in. Now you need less of the darker color than you do of the lighter color. So yellow is the lighter color. So I just needed just a touch of red, a dab of red, to make orange. So we now know red and yellow mixed together make orange. So you're going to paint that space in between the orange color that you mixed. Now your orange might be slightly different than your neighbor's orange, and that's okay. Your neighbor may have used more red or more yellow. Alright, so now I need to rinse my paintbrush off. Dry my paintbrush off. Notice how I'm drying my paintbrush. I'm just pulling it across the sponge. I'm not dabbing it into the sponge. I'm not taking the sponge and wiggling. That's just too rough on the paintbrush. And don't take your fingers and pull the bristles either. It's too hard. So now I need to mix blue with yellow to get this color here. So I'm going to take, remember it's the darker color that we need less of, so I'm going to take a touch of blue, move it over here into the yellow, and it looks like yellow and blue make green. Space between blue and yellow, I will paint a green space. So remember where it says purple, orange, and green are the secondary colors, so we made orange and green, so this last one's going to be purple. So I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off, and I need to mix red and yellow together. I need to mix red and blue together. Red is probably the lighter color, so I'm going to get some red, move it over, rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off, and just a touch of blue. Mix that around. Also known as violet. So that first box is finished. So now I'm ready to move down to here. So rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off, and I'm going to start with my warm color first, which is this magenta. So I'm going to paint this first box with magenta. Now I can either go to the right and mix a little bit of black with the magenta, a little bit more, or I can go to the left. But what I know is that I need 2 sections of magenta. because I don't want to mix white, magenta, and black together, that'll be a grayish color. So over here on this side, it's black plus magenta. On this side, it's white plus magenta. So I'm going to take some of the magenta and I'm going to put it in an empty space. I'm going to take a bunch, but I really don't need to take like half because that's a lot. Rinse my paintbrush off. Dry my paintbrush off. And I'm going to start with white because white's right there. And what you're essentially doing is you're mixing a little bit of white with magenta to get here. And then you're mixing more white to this color to get here. And then finally this last space as much white. So I'm going to take a little bit of the white. That's a lot. Mix it in with my magenta. It should make my magenta a lighter color. And I'm going to paint this color here. Now when I paint this, I want to make sure that it is different than this color. If it looked similar, I would need to stop painting. I would need to add more white, mix it around to make sure that these two are very different. I've got a lot of paint on my paintbrush here, so I'm going to try and pull it across the edge and get some of that paint out of my paintbrush because it's just way clogged. So now I'm going to take this color, which is here, and I'm going to mix more white to it to paint this next box. Bit here, I forgot to rinse my paintbrush off, so I just make sure when I'm mixing white with my turquoise that I don't touch that space there. Now I'm not going to use all of this because I want it to be darker, or lighter, I'm sorry, I want it to be lighter, so I just actually mixed a little bit more white to that on one side of it instead of the whole space. Okay. And then finally a little bit more white. So since I've already messed up the white on one side, I'll keep my paintbrush on that same side, scoop up some more white, mix that in with this last color, making sure it changes, and paint that in this last box. And I need to rinse my paintbrush off, dry it off before I start to mix black with my color. If I use this messy paintbrush with the black, it'll look like a grayish color and then you won't pass the Tempera Paint Skill Builders. So I'm gonna rinse my paintbrush off, dry my paintbrush off. Now this time I'm going to take a little bit of this magenta, move it to an empty space. Now remember, you just need a touch of the darker color. Black is very, very dark. So just a touch of black, mix it in. And you're going to paint that in the next box, making sure that this color and this color look different. There is a change. Take a touch of black again. I just went ahead and used my messy paintbrush and touched one side of the black. Make it a little bit darker, making sure this looks different than the last color. And then finally a little bit more black for the darkest shade. When you are done with this row, that each color looks a little bit different. And I clearly had that done. So now I'm going to rinse my paintbrush off and I'm going to do that all over again with my cool color. So I need 2 spaces of cool color. So I'm going to take my turquoise, move some of that over there, move some of it over here, and then to paint the color here. So this is my lighter color, so I'm going to paint that in this box. All right, and there you can see my finished first page of our Tempera Paint Skill Builders. Each one of these colors looks different, and then the 2 colors mixed together make the colors in the middle.